Okay, so our next speaker is Miranda Bain. So Miranda is a special advisor in the Office of the CEO of the Court of Victoria, so covering all court services in Victoria. Miranda has worked in international public relations. Since 2003, she's been working as a strategic advisor in justice and the courts, bringing together government, courts, the legal profession, local government and not-for-profit sectors to deliver programs which have transformed traditional business models within the justice system. Her passions are human rights and the environment, and her specialties in communications and community engagement. So I'll hand over to you, Miranda, to just talk about your involvement with the project and, you know, particular learnings that you'd like to share with us. And you're just on mute at the moment, Miranda.
Isn't that always the way? I apologise. After 3 years, you'd think you'd know. Okay, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. On my land, it's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I recognise the continuing connection to land, waterways and culture, and pay my respects to elders past, present and to emerging leaders. I also extend my deepest regard and respect to any Aboriginal person who is with us today. I have to join the long line of people who have to thank Kerry and Nicole. The Spider project has been awesome. It's made me feel a little bit inadequate because I couldn't seem to catch up with a number of webinars and educational resources and the talks and the engagement and the people and the nurses and the doctors and everyone that came on board. The approach has just been gobsmackingly, awesomely inclusive. And that is, I take my hat off. That's just extraordinary. So in a nutshell, the charter arose from the work that we did with the Human Rights Advisory Committee, which belonged originally to Funds in Court, which is a division of the Supreme Court, and is now part of the Court Services Victoria, and is known as the Disability Advisory Committee. The charter grew from a human rights obligation that I think we all share, so that all people with a disability have their right to parent their children. So in 2016, it's been a long journey. We examined the prevalence of people with a disability, in particular intellectual disability, who came into the courts and where, regrettably, they lost the right to parent their own child to out of care home. And often this was the last time they would have that joy of raising their own bubby. The issue for us was that the professionals involved believed that a person with an intellectual disability could not be shown or learn the skills necessary to raise their own children. That is a completely erroneous belief. This early inquiry also involved child protection, because you can't do anything without having child protection involved when you are examining or trying to understand how beliefs come to be. The work in developing the charter specifically was over a 2-year period, and it showed a lack of knowledge about a person with a disability, in particular an intellectual disability, by the professionals who were involved with them. The partnership approach with child protection also involved a pilot with Tweddle, Bowen Health, and child protection concerning mums and dads. So that happened about a year or two ago, and Sparta was instrumental in being able to help our Tweddle staff in understanding how to work a little bit better with a person with an intellectual disability. And those people, mums and dads in that pilot program, they wish they'd had known about the charter. Many of them had lost already a child or two to child protection. And I think the thing that is so heartbreaking in the many stories that we heard is that if you lose your child, you've lost your child. You don't get the child back. So, you know, one of the women that we work closely with, you know, she's allowed, her child now is 12, and she's allowed to visit the child, I think, for an hour every 2 weeks. She runs her own organisation. She's a brilliant, brilliant woman. And And you know, what we're going to do about that further on down the track is we're just going to have to change the legislation, I think. So the purpose of the Charter broadly is for rights for the Charter, which I'm assuming we're going to have links to the Charter that's available. Yeah, I'm looking at. Good, great, thank you. The purpose of the Charter of Rights for Parents and Carers who have an involvement with child protection in Victoria is to affirm the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which specifically sets out to promote, protect, and ensure that the full and equal enjoyment of all rights and fundamental freedoms by all persons with disabilities, and is to promote and respect for their inherent dignity. I really like the word dignity, respect, rights. It also acknowledges our own Victorian Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities. There were many individuals who we consulted around the principles of the Charter, and they included people with an intellectual disability or cognitive impairment, some with an acquired brain injury, developmental delay, autism, mental health disorders, or a combination of those elements. Many of those individuals have had an adverse involvement with child protection and endorsed the Charter and the key principles. If I go to the distribution, the Charter was launched in, oh, thank you, Nicole. I'm going to miss you. The Charter was co-launched with the Department of Fairness, Family and Housing and Child Protection in February 2022. So you can see, can kind of hear that the endorsement of the Charter by Child Protection with this department is critical to its success. And I'm very, very grateful, frankly. But the ability of the Charter to change attitudes cannot be underestimated. It's a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful way of bringing people together to have a conversation about something which is really important to them, which is their bubby. You know, they want to raise their children. And when you know that the belief that existed certainly in courts and certainly within the profession of child protection was that they couldn't be shown or they couldn't learn those skills, and that is just so terribly wrong. You know, you have to kind of, it takes a while to kind of absorb that as being an historical fact. We've seen a few of that around the place. So the Charter has been promoted to Victorian GPs via, it's in a link to a newsletter that the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners sent out. I think it's been mentioned twice there. It's available from DFFH, Child Protection. It's available and has been promoted and used in metro and regional local councils. Every major disability organisation has been met with and developed the Charter. Other disability organisations have been talked with and have access to the Charter, and I'm still meeting with them. It's available to maternal health and welfare nurses services and so on. It's been discussed thanks to Kerry and Nicole in many webinars and podcasts, and it's been written about in legal and law articles because we needed to, you know, softly educate legal practitioners around the rights, the human rights of people with an intellectual disability. We're currently developing, again with the department, an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander version of the Charter, because their sense of community and how they work as a community in raising their children is quite different to us. The next version has been drafted by the women's collectives in Mildura, Swan Hill and Robinvale, and has been distributed to back to DFFH. And I have to say it's a slow process, you know, but we want to get it right. So we're walking alongside our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander colleagues in the development of this new version. I'll go back to child protection because it's just been such an interesting conversation. You know, in life you have an interesting conversation, you just think, oh my goodness me, I would never have thought that. So the Charter is a tool to bring parties together. It is front and centre of the new induction program for child protection workers. Danny, I talked with yesterday, DepSec of DFFH, he says it's been a wonderful, liberating experience for his staff because they've got a way of talking and using the Charter when they're with a person with an intellectual disability or other disabilities, and it's a liberating tool. You know, it's an interesting kind of reflection, isn't it? And it acts as a lever to promote the person's rights and encourages respect and regard for that person who identifies with a disability. And it also respects the rights of the child protection worker in that space, right? So they have to communicate, they have to collaborate, and they have to work through. We know the tool is being used by VLA lawyers, and the tool is stopping babies from being taken from their mums and dads and put into out of care home. Like it's a wonderful thing to know that. So the Charter took a lot of consultation, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of work. But the conversations were enriched us to come back with principles that both suited the parties, both parties, child protection, what they could do legally and what they could do in terms of their own resources, and also what the expectations, how to make realistic or realise the aspirations of the parent in the room with the child protection worker. That's working. So what I wanted to say, because of course I never take too much notice of time, so I'm hoping that someone's, because I can wave my hands around and talk forever. Comes from a large family, sorry. 6 children, what can I say? Not everyone, coming from a large family, trust me, this bit's true. Not everyone is born equal. Come from a large family, you know that. Yeah. The older one gets everything. That's my view. I was number 5 out of 6. Oh, more peas on the plate. The arguments. Not everyone is born equal. Yeah, good. But everyone has the undeniable right to have the human rights respected. That's our job. That's our obligation. I think we share, everyone in the allied health and health services. You get that. You get that everyone's human rights have to be respected, and they should be treated fairly, and they should be treated with the highest of regard. And we, on this part of what we do, we have an obligation to promote and to safeguard those rights. That's our job. So the work undertaken by SPIDA, as I've said, made me feel often inadequate because I just couldn't keep up. And I'm very competitive, coming from a large family, you get that, of course. You open up the window, you open up the window to this awfulness that existed for someone with an intellectual disability, to have their voice heard, critical, have their voice heard. It doesn't take long, you just have to spend a little bit more time to listen. Just a little bit of time, not a huge amount, because once you get to work with them, you get to know them. And Auntie Jane talked about trust is a critical bit to this. If there's a trust between the parties, then you get to know them, then you understand better what it is that they're trying to say. The professionals working with persons with a disability can increase their knowledge. That's the bit, it's just been extraordinary seeing the webinars the educational resources, everything that's available for us, the professionals, working in the space. And what a wonderful outcome that is, that you can increase the life expectancy of someone with an intellectual disability. That's an awesome gift. You know, it's just wonderful that you're able to do that. So that they can live a better life and they can fulfill their own aspirations. You know, that's wonderful. But there's more work to be done. There always is. The Spider program needs to be funded more. It needs to be rolled out across the state of Victoria. I've written to the minister. I sort of got a cursory, you know, acknowledgement back, but I'm up there in 2 weeks. I'll drop by like I normally do and knock on someone's door and say g'day. And if I don't get thrown out of Parliament, which is, I don't think I've ever been thrown out of Parliament yet, but assuming that doesn't happen, I'll just rock up and just say, come on, we need to keep it going. Our work now is what we want to be able to do with the help of Kerry and Nicole is to have disability workers trained so that they can support a mum and dad pre-birth, birth, up all the way up to kinder. And that support worker would be ideally placed, because again, to be with that person hopefully throughout the major part of that journey. And that's going to take a bit, you know, to organise. It's very possible. I've written to Bill Shorten and others, just pointing out that it would be a very good step forward to have capacity built in disability workers so that they can properly support a person who has become pregnant and wants to keep their baby and to be a parent. And we want to really have disability support workers better skilled, because we're going to need them as we go forward. We're just going to have to need them because we are not a lot of people in Australia, and we can do so much. But together, which is the main lesson I've learned from the Spider group, is that together we can make just a huge difference in this area. And the world would be a better place. That's what I figure. It just would be a better place.